Like the chair was very long. Are we ready?
There you go.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the February 1st, 2022 work session for the Bethel Board of Education. Ms. Hageman, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Mansfield,
Here.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Here.
Mr. Elam,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue, here, Mrs. France.
Here. Okay, we have several additions to the agenda that have been, slotted into their appropriate categories below already. Are there any further additions to the agenda this evening? Okay, hearing none. Is there any hearing of the public regarding agenda items? Have any speakers? Anyone have anything? Okay. All right, important dates of the district. We have our facilities meeting and our regular meeting come up on February 14th. We have parent-teacher conferences on February 17th. President's Day following that on the 21st. Can't believe it's February. It's crazy already. And then our dates in March will be following that, and possibly who knows what happens by March, right? A little far out. Anyone have any additions or changes to the dates coming up? Awesome, thank you. Okay, treasurer's items. I'll turn it over to Ms. Hageman.
Oh my goodness, it's already me.
Okay, I know. Quick.
So we have the Board of Education organizational meeting minutes for your review from January 10th and the regular meeting from January 10th for your review. And then last but not least, of course, the special meeting. It took all of 15 minutes on the 13th. So we need for your review and then subsequent approval on the 14th. Items D, and E. Today is the first of the month and I did not get the books closed for January. So I will have that information to you as soon as possible. I had auditors in and then employee out. So hopefully we'll have that information to you. I'll email it to everybody as soon as it's available and put it on the agenda for the 14th.
Be the same next month too.
Right. When it's the first, it's going to be hard to do all the close and get the reports out to everybody, but I'll get them out to everybody as soon as I can. Item F is your approval to do fund-to-fund transfers. First being the transfer from general fund to the capital projects account for $700,000 for this year to cover the additional costs that we, just rising prices for the K-5 building. So I would need your approval on that on the 14th. And then transfer from improving teacher quality grant, which is the 590, to the Title 1A grant, which is the 572. This is to cover the cost of 2 teacher salaries. It doesn't cover all of it, but it's most of it. And you're allowed to take your improving teacher quality money and put that in with your title money so you can cover the total cost, as much as we can of those 2 teachers. So that was submitted as part of our TCIP or a plan for grants. And so I just need your approval to transfer from one fund to another. So I had to receipt everything in the 590 and now I need to move it to the 572 so we can make sure we're getting everybody paid. Then I know there were some questions, but we've got a form 471, which is, or 470, which is our contract with WOCA and for ERate services. It's $26,687. It expires on 6/30/2024. If you read through this, it says, how do you want to receive your ERate discount? It's either bear or discount method, which means you either get paid from the state when they process everything, or you have them discount your invoices. And so you guys we are currently set up for discount. We're going to continue that because I like to just pay less and let them wait on those money. We have one certificate of availability for your approval, which is for payment to the Montgomery County Educational Services. ESC services, the ESC for physical therapy services. If you remember, that was the one contract we didn't get on time. We got it in November. We needed to get that approved in November. And of course, the subsequent invoicing was dated in October, which is after board approval. It's dated 10/20. And the PO was actually dated in January. So we need your approval to pay it because it's for $16,643.22. 643.22, if I can say it. And my approval to approve what's called a then and now is only up to $3,000. This is one of the additions to the agenda, and this one's mine. This is a virtual credit card program. So we can set up some of our vendors with automatic payments through what's a virtual credit card. There are a lot of controls in place and it won't be automatic. So you have to process it, send the money, blah, blah, blah. But it gives us up to 1.5% of our total spend in rebates. And so with interest rates being so low, I'm trying to think of ways that we could increase our revenue. And I've used this company at other districts, and it's the highest rate I can find. And it gets our vendors paid quickly. And we've had some checks get lost in the mail and have incurred a lot of late fees lately. So this is another step in that direction, getting all that cleaned up. So give you guys a chance to read through that. So if you have any questions, we can discuss on the 14th. Last but not least, appointing me for treasurer CFO as the public records designee. So that's all I have under treasurer's items, unless anybody has any questions.
I had a couple questions.
Mhm.
The 700,000, is this the first year of the extra budget you've given by the state?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And then the approval for the physical therapy services, does that change our 5-year forecast?
No, those services were already included in our purchase services contracts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tina, on the transfer, will we have another transfer then next year to handle the additional 700,000?
Yes.
For the 22-23 year then?
Yes, right. And the 5-year forecast, it was 700,000 for this year and 700,000 for next
I just
year.
wanted to make sure.
To
that
hit-
we still
yeah.
have to- So we'll still have to approve that even though.
Yeah, yeah. Even though it's in the 5-year, you still have to approve the transfers before they can actually be done. So we'll do them before the end of the month in February.
Oh, like next year.
Well, we'll probably have the transfer on sooner next
Like
year
fall,
because we
okay.
didn't get the money until January this year
Right.
because of it being the first year. So
Yeah.
hopefully that we won't run into that problem again next year. So.
Any further questions for Mrs. Hageman under the treasurer's item?
I also want to say thank you for getting the 1.5% rebate. I think that's a fabulous deal. That will improve our bottom line.
Right, hopefully, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, if there's nothing further, we can move to, sorry, I'm sorry.
On that card, is that, do you have to apply yearly for that or?
No, it's a service agreement with that company. It's called a credit card or a purchasing card, but it really isn't. It's a virtual card. What happens is you assign your vendors the first, 12 numbers of the credit card, but they can't do anything until we give them the last 4 digits. And that happens when we process payments for them, have the invoice and everything goes according to plan, hopefully. We will send them the last 4 digits and then they can process their payment. Yeah, we on our side just send an ACH out to the various vendors. So it's not really a credit card, but they call it that. But it's a way for us to monitor those expenses. So
Thank you. That's excellent. Anything further?
There was one thing on the meeting minutes. I think March 14th is missing from the communications calendar. We can check on that.
okay. From which board meeting?
I have March 14th.
Oh, the board meeting and
Oh,
right following the facilities meeting on March 14th.
yes, I believe so.
Yeah, good catch. Thank you.
Oh, on this meeting.
On the.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch. Thank you, Mrs. Burns.
No problem.
Okay. Anything further with the treasurer's items? Or anything else up to this point? Okay, great. Ready for items for treasurer from the treasurer for discussion? Item number 6, it's a mouthful.
All right, so I just wanted to discuss public records with everybody for a minute now. I'm sure everyone knows, but just in case, the Ohio Revised Code requires that all board members attend public records training at least once during every new term. So for Danny, for Mr. Elam, Mrs. Donahue, and Mrs. Franz, they'll have to do at least 3, you have to do a minimum of 3 hours public records training. Or you can name your treasurer or someone else as your designee, and I get to enjoy the 3 hours of public records training. So which is why that's on the board agenda for your approval. It sort of goes hand in hand. And so this just sort of goes through what the auditor of state requires. Now, Brennan, Mr. Hattery completed the training as the board's designee in October of 2020. So I will need to do it again here in 2022. But it is a mandatory requirement, and the auditors will ask for proof that somebody has gone and received the certificate at least once every term. So I always make it a habit to go over 2 years because everybody gets reelected, and so now any board member who wants to attend the 3-hour training, you may do so. I'm not saying you can't, you have to let me have all the fun. So if you want to attend it, you can attend online at the Ohio Attorney General's website. If you do attend, I just ask that you send me a copy of the certificate that you received. So then when the auditors say, show us proof that that your board members attended, I have that proof for you. So I can sign up and be the designee for all 5 board members. You can only sign up for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the Ohio Auditor of State's office, they don't have anything online for training, but they'll schedule training, but they like to do big groups. So unless you've got like 100 people in the room, and I don't know with COVID if they still want to do big groups, but they also will do training as well at the Ohio Auditor of State's office. So our public records policy is policy 8310. And it defines records as any document, device, or item, regardless of physical form or characteristic, including an electronic record created or received by coming under the jurisdiction of the board or its employees, which serves to document the organizational's functions, policies, decisions, procedures, operations, or other activities of the district. Breathe, that's one sentence. What does that mean? It just means any emails, correspondence, reports, recordings, sometimes even notes can be used that are used in the day-to-day operations of the district are considered public records. So if a board member sends an email asking to have lunch with a friend who happens to be a teacher, that's typically not a public record. However, if the board member asks that individual employee to have lunch to discuss some recent happenings in the district, that makes it a public record, because now you've said, hey, I want to have lunch with you so we can discuss A, B, C, and D. Well, that makes it a public record because now you're discussing district business, right? But if you're just asking to have lunch, you're just asking to have lunch. It's not in the regular course of business. So I always tell everybody it's always best to assume that all district emails sent and received are considered a public record, right? So I always say exercise caution when you're forwarding emails received from others, because it creates an additional public record, right? So when you forward an email that's, the originator sent to one person and you forward it to 12, now we've got 13 public records out there, right? It's just sort of like email etiquette. I always consult with the originator of the email, only because sometimes when you're crafting emails, it depends upon who your audience is, and we may have to tweak it a little bit just to make sure that, we say what we need to say to that particular person. So it is a public record and it's available upon request, and you can certainly forward. I just ask that you keep in mind that you're creating more public records, and we want to make sure that the originators are aware that we're forwarding their information. Now, the Auditor of State has created a best practices where they give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, I guess, like restaurants and hotels now. And so one of the things they like is that you create a public records request log, which includes the following things, which is date of request, name of the person or entity, type of records requested, the date of the release, the legal authority for any redactions, and the name of the person fulfilling request. So if we have to keep a log, I always strive to do the best that we possibly can. So if we can get 5 stars, I want 5 stars. So we have to keep that, I'm going to try and keep a log of all the requests. And if you receive a request as a board member, I just ask that you forward those to me. If you go ahead and forward your own emails or fulfill the request, then I don't have it on the log and I'm not aware of it when the auditors ask, why didn't you finish this? If somebody says you didn't fulfill a records request, well, I didn't know that existed. So just make sure that you forward them on to me so I can take care of it and we can get it on the log. There's always exceptions to everything, right? So common exceptions to public records release or disclosure, they're in those wonderful Ohio Sunshine Laws manuals that we handed out, but also on the Ohio Attorney General's website. I just download a copy to my desktop so I can easily search it. I don't like the paper version, but one of the things that I thought was interesting is that website also includes like Appendix A, B, and B that outline the particular Ohio Revised Code section that says you can redact this information. You don't need to provide this, such as 149.433 B and C that states that security records kept by the public office are not public records and not subject to disclosure. So just a quick overview, certainly not any kind of training because I'm not an expert by any means, but I just wanted to let everybody know about your requirements to get the training or send me in your stead. And when we're sending emails that we just need to be very, very aware that those are all public records as they go out. So anything that has to do with FERPA, free and appropriate education, student identifiable information, attorney-client privilege, all of those things are not considered public records, but there's always exceptions. But if you have any questions about it, please feel free to call and ask, or just holler at me, as I used to say. I included the policy 8310, also the Auditors States Bulletin from 2011 and 2019 that shows the best practices that I talked about. And like I said, I think this is the one that has the 5-star rating system. Yeah, there we go, 4 stars. We want to try and get as many stars as we possibly can. So any questions for me, concerns?
I think it's wonderful that you're, as a designee, you're willing to give us training and know what standard you're holding yourself to so that we can help with that. And I appreciate going through it because there was a lot to know with records.
There is, yeah.
I mean, we haven't even touched on disposal and all that other stuff, so Lord have mercy, it's a murky thing that I don't even want to know about if I don't have to, but.
Well, you
I probably
will
will,
as
I
board
probably will.
president. Yeah.
That's right. If I don't have to, I said, and
Right,
unfortunately, it
what are
all changed this year, but I probably will take the training this year as a result of that, exactly.
Right.
Exact thing, so.
Our policy 8310 does establish a records commission, which just means it's a fancy term for the superintendent, the treasurer, and the board president should meet at least once annually to review all records and decide what needs to be disposed of. So it's just a fancy term for that. We'll just sit down, look at it, and then, of course, anything that is going to be disposed of will have to be presented to the board and approved.
This, I mean, it's very much like what they tell you about keep your taxes for 7 years and stuff like that. Like, there's a list of what you can and can't get rid of, so.
Right,
it's-
right.
I mean, yeah, okay, no worries. So I think that's right. Anyone have any comments or questions for Mrs. Hageman regarding this fabulous training?
I did the online training, I don't know, a while ago, 4 or 5 years ago, probably 6 years ago when I got on board. It is what it is.
Right.
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
3 hours.
They used to lock you in when they first started it. Well, I've been around a little too long, because when they first started it, you'd come in the room, if you weren't in there on time, they'd shut the door behind you and you couldn't get in.
Wow.
And then, they'd lock you in, and then you'd have like a certain number of minutes to go to the bathroom. If you didn't make it back, you couldn't finish the training.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
They're not as strict as they used to be, thank goodness, yeah.
Well, there's a lot to know, so. Okay, fantastic. All right, no further comments or questions? All right, moving on to item 7, superintendent's item requesting board action
Yeah.
tonight.
Good evening. On the agenda this evening for consideration is letter A, approval of certified long-term substitute. This is Miss Laura Bathel. Her attached resume is provided to the board in executive version for your review. Ms. Battle has graciously been serving in Mrs. Spears' position, and will do so for the remainder of the school year. And the plan is to have that position posted for the 22-23 school year here very soon. So she's on the agenda for consideration this evening. Number 8.
Well, we need to get somebody to move.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We need to,
Yep, sorry.
we need to vote on this one.
Yeah.
So is there a motion for long-term substitute for middle school group?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mr. Elam. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion related to long-term substitute? Hearing none. Ms. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. Springs.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Number 8, superintendent's items for discussion. This is a preview of the upcoming meeting where you will receive probably more extensive information, but I'm going to try to give you a high-level overview this evening. Letter A is review of clubs. The first one is the Beekeepers Club. This was a club that started in the 1920 school year. It's essentially a peer tutoring group where we have students that are doing very well in school and have parent permission that can serve as tutors to at-risk students in the middle school building. It was started by Mr. Ziegler, his last year in the district. Caroline Lawson, our teacher, is serving kind of as the advisor right now, and they assist with anti-bullying presentations, new student orientations for our 5th graders that are coming into the district or into the building as 6th graders. They do some other things as far as helping in classrooms, and like I mentioned before, tutoring of students that are struggling. It's not obviously going to be a supplemental position or anything. They're just asking for official recognition as a school club. It won't be at any cost to the district and very little cost, if any, to the students. So that was one thing they were hoping that you would consider as a official school recognized club. The second item is Hope Squad. That is one that we have to do as part of the grant that was written to pay for this program. We wrote a grant a couple of years ago to the Tri-County Board of Health, Mental Health. It's fully funded grant. Hope Squad is becoming a rapidly popular program throughout Southwest and now creeping up into Northwest Ohio as well. It deals with, once again, anti-bullying, suicide prevention, those type of things. And we have staff members that have been trained, fully paid for through the grant dollars, and they provide student leadership opportunities and almost like a Big Brothers Big Sisters program to students that are at risk or struggling. So it's relatively new in its infancy, but it's received some good positive messaging from students and staff so far. And as we continue to get more familiar with it, we'll obviously continue to expand it. So a couple of programs that we put in place the last couple of years to try to continue to focus in on the mental health of our students and making sure that we create an environment where they're happy and excited about being at school and they feel like they're supported and they have people that are there to connect with them and care about them as they're struggling. Letter B is one that we do annually, although there is a disclaimer that is attached to letter B. It's the review of open enrollment policies for 22-23, but as you are well aware, until our space issues are temporarily resolved with the opening of the new elementary building, we have for now shut down the acceptance of new open enrollment students because of a lack of space. We still are allowing students that have been grandfathered in to the district and their siblings to be here. But it's one that regardless if we have open enrollment effectively in place or not, we still have to annually approve each year. Will that change in the future? I hope so. But as of now, with our limited space, I don't think the district is in a position to accept multiple open enrollment students or new students in the district. Letter C is one that is returning to Bethel. It was here, took a year off, and now we're bringing back Camp Laughalot, which is a summer camp for the elementary kiddos. The dates are June 6th through 10th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's at a cost of $105 per student for that 4 days and the 5 hours a day that it provides. They do all kinds of team building, exercises, problem solving, critical thinking, just a fun summer camp for the kids that we offer here on campus. For every student that participates, Bethel Local Schools will receive $7 back from that $105. Typically, Mrs. Hageman can probably confirm, but that money most likely would probably go into principals' accounts that would in turn be used to support staff and students throughout the school year. Is that correct?
I'd have to look.
Okay.
I would assume.
Okay. Letter D is one that we approve annually as well. It is a resolution to participate in the OHSAA, which is the Ohio High School Athletic Association. So they require an annual resolution from all members in the state of Ohio that participate in public schools extracurricular activities with athletics. It's essentially a formality. It's really the same resolution every single year, and it's on the agenda for your consideration on the 14th. Letter E is one that I would ask that you guys take a look at between now and the meeting on February 14th. These are the course and study guides for middle school and high school. And so what I've typically done is ask them to provide a couple of copies. One is what they're proposing for next year, and then the other one should have either proposed changes or information that's been struck out that you guys can see what the building principals and working with counselors and some of the staff have taken a look at as far as what they would like to offer. Or some classes maybe they phased out because of enrollment numbers being low or just not as much interest from kids. So the idea is to consistently look at what we offer kids and making sure that what we're offering is being taken and it's popular and it's having success, or what are other options based on sometimes it's state requirement changes that we need to start offering. And so you can see it's one thing that we've asked the principals to provide the last couple of years to give to you folks to take a look at. So in the meantime, if you could kind of review those, and if you would have any questions and you want to email me those, that's fine. I will forward them on to the principals, or if you want to go directly towards Mr. Triplett or Mr. Swope with some questions that you may have on that, please feel free to do so. It's not really anything in my position that I get heavily involved in. So I would essentially take your questions and redirect it towards that. So. But at least you have it in hand and you can review it prior to the 14th. Questions you might have.
Alderman Mayor, any questions at the moment for item 8? Before we move to item 9.
So just to reiterate, any questions I would have on the Bethel Middle School Beekeepers Club, Hope Squad, you would want me to direct?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, Mr. Triplett oversees the B squad. Hope Squad, is that Mr. I mean, we have high school advisors.
Right, Mr. Swope or Colleen Henderson.
Colleen Henderson, who's our social emotional counselor. I'm not gonna lie on that one. I wrote the grant for it, but I haven't had much to do with the program. I mean, I just don't do that where I'm at. So I do the grant work, but yeah, if you would have any questions on that program, feel free to reach out to those folks. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Beekeepers is the second year for it, and the Hope Squad is the second year, first year for it.
Okay,
So relatively new programs.
and then for open enrollment.
Yeah.
Do those, I think this may have already been answered, to those who are already accepted, they don't have to apply every year?
They do, they apply, but they get accepted automatically.
Okay,
The application is more for a formality purpose.
Well, as long as there's space. I mean,
Correct.
okay,
we have had situations, and not when Justin's been here, but in previous years where we just didn't have space, and we said, unless you're in the district, we are not accepting 7th and 8th grade, for instance.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned that because I don't foresee us having to do that.
No, we haven't had to turn anybody away since I've been here. But next year will be a little bit tighter, and then hopefully we get a little bit of a pressure release the following year with the new elementary building.
okay. So are we making this clear on the website that right now we don't have any space?
Yeah,
Okay,
and people call frequently about it, and we communicate that to them on the telephone as well.
Anything further before we move to item 9? Okay, so moving then to item 9, Mr. Burke, so item for the superintendent for discussion, please.
One of the items that you guys will receive a presentation on the 14th from our 2 elementary principals, Mrs. Schock, Ms. Jones, and myself, will be on the an additional curriculum item that we're looking at adding for the 22-23 school year. We've been able to do some site visits, have some discussions with staff, visit some other districts in semi-region that have this program. It's called a Young Fives program. What we're finding is elementary curriculum is becoming more rigorous at a younger age. I sometimes often say that kindergarten is the new first grade. It seems like it's much different than it was when I was a kid. From the academic responsibility and requirements to just full day, every day, all day, and what the kids are expected to know by the end of kindergarten. One of the areas of concern as we continue to grow and with the academic requirements is that as a district, and I think all districts are probably experiencing this as well, they sometimes feel that the children, when they come to kindergarten, aren't quite ready for kindergarten, either academically, sometimes socially. We do have a lot of requests because although we do have a preschool that's operated by the ESC in our district, it's also very small attended as far as number of students from Bethel. And so a lot of our kids do come to kindergarten that first year, and it's their first year of an educational experience. Some have preschool, some do not. And so one of the items that we're looking at to improve our curriculum moving forward is a program called Young Fives. And so the Young Fives program is essentially a 2-year program that serves as a first year modified kindergarten curriculum / preschool program. And then the second year, those kiddos would transition into a traditional kindergarten class. So it's almost like an adjusted kindergarten program. This would be for students who were born between March 1st, 2017 and August 1st, 2017. So our district requirement from policy of August 1st birthday is still in play. It is a full day program. Go from your traditional elementary hours of 8:45 to 3:15. As I mentioned before, it's a 2-year commitment that families will be made aware of, and they will sign a contract understanding that if they choose to go this route, it's a parent choice. that they would be in a 2-year program. As we mentioned before, the first year we'll focus in on modified preschool and the kindergarten curriculum. It's very small class sizes. We're looking at 14 to 16 students to try to get that more one-on-one small group type setting with the classroom instructor. Second year, they will be in a traditional classroom setting. We're looking at having an informational night on Tuesday, March 15th at 6:00 p.m. in the high school media center to allow any parents that are interested in the program to come learn more about it. We've had discussions with staff members who are potentially interested in looking at this program and working in it as well. We think it could potentially have a huge impact on not only providing our kids an educational experience earlier, but also we get a number of phone calls from parents who want their kids enrolled in kindergarten the day they turn 5, no matter what day of the school year it is. Believe it or not, Central Office Secretary Mrs. Felton gets, I would say, probably at least one phone call a month from a parent that says, hey, it's February 1st, my kid turned 5, I want to enroll him in kindergarten. And that's a little bit of a challenge in the conversation when we tell them, well, you didn't meet the August 1st deadline. So it's an opportunity for us to provide almost like a latchkey program where it's educational based, but it's also before they have a traditional opportunity for kindergarten year as well. We have made some information available. If you would, can you click on our website here real quick? Bethel K12. Hate to mess you up.
Got me all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you scroll down, you should be able to find, if you click on, go to the bottom and then, or excuse me, go to the menu, top, yeah, kindergarten registration right there.
Okay. So here.
Yes, more headlines. So we've also started to put out more information on kindergarten registration. One of the areas that I've identified as a weakness in the district was that kindergarten registration happened later than what I was typically used to. Although I understand that you want to try to capture as many families as you can in August, and also put us in a bind late in the summer of not knowing how many sections of kindergarten we were going to have to offer. And so we're trying to get information out to families earlier to make them aware of the deadlines for being eligible for kindergarten, when we're going to offer kindergarten screening, which is going to be now in March over a couple of days. And then also opportunities to schedule meetings and appointments because there's a number of paperwork that needs to be submitted. So if you look for more information on the registration process, if you want to click here, it takes them through a detailed registration online through our final forms, a step-by-step process of what they actually need to have from birth certificates, immunization records, custody papers, any special education records if they qualify, proof of residency, which is a big one, and then also parent, guardian, driver's license. 3, it gives them information on when our screenings are going to be. We're given multiple days and opportunities for families to come in, and then it also provides opportunities for families of children who are young for kindergarten, who may be interested in young 5s, to see if we have enough interest to put this program in place. So obviously this program is going to be dictated by how much interest we have. We're hoping that it would garner some heavy interest as people want to learn more about it. And so that kind of gives you an idea of what our kindergarten registration page looks like. If you want to go back to the main page, could please. Right there, if you scroll down, it continues to give them more information. And then it also provides some information on the young 5s. And we've also started a registration tab early now, so parents can start to indicate, yes, I'm strongly considering sending my kid to kindergarten next year. So we have a good idea how many kids we're going to have coming into our kindergarten for next year. This year's kindergarten class was the biggest kindergarten class Bethel's ever had. We have right over 160 kids right now. So I want to see if that number is an anomaly because of COVID and people maybe held their kids back for a year because of not knowing what school is going to look like, or if that 160 is going to hold steady or hold fast and move forward in the future.
With this 5, I have
We're still working on that. We're still working on that. So we've had some discussions with principals. We've had some discussions with maintenance. We would also have discussions with you guys about some potential options. So yeah, that's a huge concern as well. With only having 14 kids in it though, it wouldn't be like you would need a large space as you would in a traditional room. So that is definitely an item that's under heavy consideration right now. That gives you a little bit of an idea on young fives. You're going to hear a lot more about it at our 14th meeting. We'll have a slide presentation that I'm going to prepare. We've had it prepared. I'll get that sent out to you guys so you can review it ahead of time and you can learn more about it. So I at least wanted to give you a heads up that it's coming. And so you can be able to look out for the presentation sent to you via email. Letter B, also, I guess semi-excited because it comes
Right.
with strings attached. As part of the new biennium budget, Bethel Local Schools has received state dollars with our school bus purchasing grant. We've been fortunate enough to participate in this grant the last several years and continue to update our transportation fleet. I would say Bethel's in a much better position than they were probably 6 or 7, 8 years ago with their transportation fleet and the status of their buses. The state of Ohio has presented us with a grant for $152,732 to purchase 3 new buses. The state of Ohio has already indicated that if you accept these dollars, you have to purchase 3 buses. You can't only do 2, or you can't only do 1, or you can't try to scheme the system, which I wanted to say it up front because I'm sure I was going to get asked. I can tell you that essentially, if you divide that number by 3, that's $50,910 per bus. Last year, we bought a bus at $95,547. So if you accept the money and you buy the 3 buses, you're going to essentially probably pay about $180,000 for 3 buses, and you're going to get $152,000. So if you accept the money, you're going to have to figure out from general fund or other areas where you're going to find those dollars to pay for that. And I don't think buses can be permanent improvement. Or it could be permanent
No,
improvement.
buses are PI. But yeah, so as Mr. Burks indicated, it's $152,732, which we're happy to receive. 3 buses. If you're spending $95,500 on 1 bus, that's $286,642. So in essence, I've got to find $133,909 to cover the cost of 3 additional buses, or we can look at specs and make some adjustments there. So,
But they don't all have to be bought at the same time.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
How I read it, it was
Yeah.
another year.
You can, right, yeah, you can do it in another year. It has to be spent, I think, by the end of, 23, June 30, 2023. So I'm looking at it and what we can do. So we may be able to buy, 1 bus this year or 2 buses this year and 1 bus next year, and see what we would be able to handle. Yeah, so we're expected to receive more state funding next year. So it may be behoove us to do 1 and 2, but we'll have to sit and take a look.
It's just difficult because we're building.
Because you're
which
building a
also
building,
needs
right.
PI essentially,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
It's a tight spot, but.
Yeah, trying to look
Our
at,
buses and
what
our
we've
fleet
already-
is aging as well, so,
and as part of, as part of this grant, we have to take 3 buses off.
Do we
Our
have
routes.
3 that are in that condition?
Well, I'm sure we do.
It's 3 buses that are on your traditional bus route. I'd have to take a look at those.
We have to look
We
at
have
the
some
approved
ones that are in
list.
our spare reserve if one breaks down. But it clearly indicates it has to be one that you use daily for routes.
Right. We
So I would
can
work with Gail on that. And just because you have an older bus with high mileage doesn't automatically make it in worse shape. You get some when you buy them, they're in it's just the luck of the draw. You get a lemon occasionally. It always has issues, so.
Right, when we're looking at those kind of things, it's always good to look at what's your maintenance cost, what bus is costing you the most money to keep on the road. It doesn't always have to be the one that's got the most mileage. But the way the state looks at it is what's your oldest bus and how many, and has the most mileage. I think that's the easiest way to look at it. So I understand both sides. But we're happy to have the money, so we'll certainly look and see how we can make that work and get 3 new buses in here, so.
So Tina, can you explain, you said we should get some more money for buses next year. Will we be able to use that money on these 3 buses, or will that be completely separate?
It'll be separate. I think this grant, this part, they call it a grant. you have until the end of next year, so fiscal year 23 to spend. So you can put in a request, the funds are available as of today. So you can put in your grant application, for lack of a better term, saying, we want to do this. And so that's what we need to look at is work with Gail to see how many buses we can take off, that we can take off the road and replace, and we can move those buses into subs and if we need to, or we have to, So we have to look at all the little intricate details, but I don't want to look and see. But you can accept just 2. We just want to buy 2 buses. But then you don't get 152,000, you get 100,000 and some change. So that's what we need to look at.
And I think they did say if districts rejected or didn't apply, they would reallocate that for the existing district.
Correct.
So I mean, hopefully.
Yeah,
that
so
would-
if there are other districts out there that say, hey, we don't want this money, or we only want to buy 1 bus, so we'll only accept enough money for 1 bus, then they'll do a reallocation and you may get more money, but it may also come with the strings of you need to buy 2 more buses.
My experience is it usually goes to Cleveland.
So that they.
Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. That's I understand.
That's usually how it goes.
Usually,
It's like straight A grant dollars. Wrote a straight A grant for 5 years. It's always the big districts, Youngstown, Akron, Cleveland. Always got the dollars. So.
I'm just excited that, even getting 50 to 60% of the bus paid, that's a pretty big deal.
oh no, you used to, there have been years where we only got like $20,000. I'm like, what am I supposed to buy? Just the backside of the bus? I mean, yeah. That wouldn't even replace all the seats in a bus, so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Fires.
Yeah. I'm happy to get it.
But yeah, it's still,
Any news is good news for that.
Right.
We'll figure it out. We've only known about it for a few days, so I really an opportunity to have a discussion.
Yeah, the information is just coming out on it. So as we get more details, we'll continue to update you guys.
It's fantastic.
Okay, letter C, it's that time of the year that the district is starting to look at intent forms for personnel. We do intent forms for all classified and certified staff to kind of get an idea of what their thoughts are, either at the end of this school year or long-term. It's not committal at all. I mean, they don't have to, it's not binding essentially, but it just helps us with future planning and district. To give you guys just a general update, obviously none of this stuff is official yet. It's not official until you receive the letter, but we do have one individual who's indicated potentially that they will retire at the end of the school year. I know they're still working with their retirement services to make sure everything's in line. I's are dotted, T's are crossed, et cetera. Once if we do receive that, I'll make you guys aware. So we'll have potential retirement posting. As the district continues to expand, we've been fortunate to try to look at 4 to 6 positions per year where we've had to add. I think we've done some good work in areas where we've addressed that the number is going to be slightly lower for next year. Having some discussions with building level principals. This is only preliminary talk, so it's obviously going to change. But as we continue to add more students, we add more staff to try to keep some numbers low. So one of the areas with Young Fives, as we talked about, that potentially could be a existing kindergarten teacher that transitions over to that program. It's obviously going to be based on numbers. Another good thing about the Young Fives program is that it's fully funded kindergarten dollars, which is different than preschool. Oftentimes preschool lose money for districts, although they're very, very important. My previous district, we would transfer probably $60,000 to $70,000 a year to our preschool, but we also realized the value that it provided getting kids ready for kindergarten. So it was a commitment that our school board and our administration felt like we needed to make. So this program is not one where you're going to have to transfer dollars. It's fully funded state kindergarten dollars, which is great. There are probably only a dozen districts in the state of Ohio that have the Young Fives program. The closest one to us would be Hardin House local schools. So we kind of think it's on the cutting edge of what people are doing. I don't understand why more people don't explore this opportunity, but we'll be the first around here that have it, hopefully. But some areas that we're looking at for next year, new positions, would be a special education position in the middle school. We've also been looking at high school math, high school social studies as well, as those numbers start to triculate up the chain from the school system and into the middle school and high school. And then obviously we'll continue to take a look at kindergarten to kind of see where those numbers are at. Currently, all of our K-5 sections are 6 sections of teachers. Not saying that won't change. I know it's much different than what Bethel used to be, size-wise. And as we continue to grow, we try to keep our classroom numbers as manageable as we can be with this limited space that we have, at least for another school year. And so these are some of the areas that we're looking at and adding for next school year. Another area that we have talked about would be a credit recovery at-risk program for students grades 6 through 12. I think one of the areas as a district that we can self-reflect and identify that we can do better in is providing almost a alternative education opportunity on campus for kids who are either slipping through the cracks or in the high school level are at risk of dropping out. Unfortunately, that's a scenario that we have to deal with each year. It's a scenario we've had to deal with every district I've worked in, where kids are here and they just, I don't know, school's not for them. They don't want to be here. Maybe this credit recovery online opportunity would give them a chance to avoid having to drop out and potentially look at getting their GED later on. It would also serve as at-risk for middle school kids as well. Some replacements that we have to for sure look at for next year would be a replacement for our long-term sub that's serving right now in high school technology. That position will be posted very soon. As you remember, Mr. Oldigus left late in the summer. We were just unwilling to kind of make that commitment to a long-term teacher that late in the game. And so we went the long-term sub route knowing that we were going to replace it for this upcoming school year. We've mentioned previously a replacement for middle school English language arts, Mrs. Spears' position. And then also a classified position would be a replacement for next school year here at the high school media center as well.
Are we filling that temporarily?
It's been tough. I know right now we have it posted. We haven't received a bunch of interest. I know Mrs. Lawson comes in here and helps out, but it's not the greatest situation in here in the media center, but we were having a hard time finding subs in a lot of positions. So that's letter C for personnel updates. It kind of gives you a outline of what we're looking at for next year and some of the discussions that we're having and we'll continue to have throughout the spring. And I'll keep you guys updated and in the know as far as and what we're at and what we're doing. Letter D, technology project update. So as you remember, we approved this last school year. We used some significant ERate dollars and it's been a 3-phase process. Back in August, we did rewiring of the elementary and middle school with all new Cat 6A network cable, which matched the Cat 6A network cable that was put in the high school during the building project. Our cabling in the middle school and high school, I think, was last done in 1999. So it was fairly old and outdated. We also replaced network switches and core switches. This last weekend, we were able to finalize and finish up all replacements of access wiring, access wireless access points throughout the district. We've also been able to add additional ones, remove existing ones, and we're still working out the tweaks and bugs with reconfiguring all those devices. But at least we have in place the infrastructure to hopefully fix a lot of the issues that we've had connectivity wise here in the district. The total cost of that project was $256,213. ERate funds paid for $112,519.79. District was responsible for $143,693.28. Just to kind of give everybody an update on where we were at with that and how we were able to use federal funds to help offset a good portion of those costs. But I think it's definitely an upgrade that's going to be needed as our district continues to grow and we also add additional devices to our district, especially during state testing time, where you have multiple grade levels online at one time, giving a math test, a language arts test, et cetera, because those tests are all now done digitally rather than paper pencil copy. So pretty excited about that. We still have a lot of work to do and some kinks to iron out, but we are definitely making some steps in the right direction. Some curriculum changes. I know one of the goals the board had set for me at the end of last year was to kind of give some curriculum updates as far as what are some ideas that we're thinking about moving forward. We have these discussions every year like we do personnel. Probably haven't done the best job of sharing them. We've kind of implemented them and we've done it, but I at least want to make you guys aware. So some of the things that we're talking about doing, nothing's set in stone here, but it's this preliminary talk with some internal shifting around of folks, meaning with our current staffing and having discussions with those folks. We feel very good that we're going to be able to offer full K-5 technology rotation next year for all of our companies using Mrs. Tipton. We're also feel very confident that we're going to be able to have Mr. Tays only work K-5 in art and offer full rotations for art. A lot of these folks, specials wise, we're covering across the board between elementary and middle school, and we were spread kind of thin. We've realized that the K-5 technology especially is really important just because so much is done online, especially with assessments, that it's great for kids to not only learn internet safety, but also how to drop, drag, click, pull things into boxes with state assessments. And I also think having K-5 full art rotation is also an outlet for kids to not always be the grind of language arts, math, social studies. Those are all important, but having art is a release for them to go in and be creative and explore those kind of interests for the kids as well. Title I, we've been able to add an additional Title I teacher last school year, our second one, which was a huge, okay, I take that back. It would have been a huge help until our lack of subs issue. It feels like they're covering classes all the time. I know, but thankful for them for doing that. But we're really going to focus Title I next year on K-2. We think that a lot of the growth and strides can be made there. They're still going to service 3 through 5, but we feel like the K-2 is where we can get the most bang for our buck. Hopefully next year we can settle things down with COVID and people being out. I don't know if you're ever going to eliminate it, but settle it down a little bit where these folks are not covering traditional classrooms for lack of subs. We think that could be a huge improvement for our K-2. As we mentioned before, we'd like to add an additional social studies teacher for the high school 7 through 12 certification, although they would primarily serve high school. And then also add an additional 7 through 12 cert in math, because one of the things that we would like to add for mathematics is an applied algebra class, which would be a great target for our kids that struggle, maybe not ready for algebra 2 quite yet, and give them an option to still get their math credits, but be more successful in a math class setting. One of the state requirements also is to provide financial literacy. You used to be able to hide that in government class. They now require you to teach a full component of financial literacy. We feel like this math teacher could also pick that up, so all of our kids will receive that mandated Ohio Department of Education semester or quarter credit of financial literacy. We're looking at the Young Fives program next year, which is a modified preschool kindergarten program. We're also looking in the elementary this year, transitioning from administration. To be honest, it didn't get done. We're going back to looking at more cluster groupings for our gifted students to provide more services in that department. It had been done here previously, did not get done for this year. We're looking at doing that again for next year. In the future, topics that we're talking about looking at as we get more space would be a K-4 makerspace program. This would be all done with staff existing. I don't want people thinking we're adding all these new teachers. It's not. This is be a K-4 makerspace program that allows kids to be creative, critically think, problem solve, collaborate, connect, and really try to expand their science, technology, engineering, and math skills. We've also had some discussions with the Upper Valley Career Center as we get more space with the middle school and high school principals. Pipe dream, I would love to have a satellite program here similar to what we currently have with the UVCC, adding additional ones and looking at a VOAC program. We have a number of kids, I think, that would be interested in a VOAC program. We could also take a look at logistics and manufacturing that would hit a certain segment of our student population. We've also looked at for leadership component and for our military families in the district, a junior ROTC program as well. So we're trying to hit a number of the demographics in our district and the different families in our districts that we think would help build a connection between the school and their home life and what they're interested in. So I know I threw a lot at you, but that's what we're kind of having discussions about now. Some of these may be in a year or two when we have more space. Most of these are going to be, we're looking at rolling out for next school year. And it's just going to be adjusting staff that we currently have in the district.
With the rotation, I like the idea of having the K-5 art and technology.
Mhm.
So are we reducing the time that someone will be spending with their middle school and high school kids, or how's that?
No, we're hoping with some of the reductions in course offerings, I wouldn't say reduction, I would say classes that aren't being taken, so we're not offering them as much.
Or have few students in?
We're gonna be able to use some internal people that have the certifications to be able to do
Okay,
those.
good.
We're still gonna offer the same amount of art
Good.
in the middle school
Yep.
and technology. It's gonna be covered by people internally.
Should like the ROTC plan.
Yeah, we think we have a heavy military influence in the district. We feel like it's a good way to connect. Plus, I also think it provides some needed leadership for all kids, including probably adults as well to some degree, that could benefit from involvement in the program.
Other comments on item 9? Questions?
I asked a question, maybe not right on that, but I'll forget it if I don't ask.
Yeah.
The survey that went out, the
Oh,
impact day survey,
Mhm.
there were enough responses.
We had our last count, and I have to say thank you to Della and Shannon Montgomery and all of those ladies, Beth Shoup and Amanda, for helping me get those out to everyone. I couldn't have done it, we couldn't have gotten it done if it wasn't a team effort, but federal impact aid, yeah, we had 188 our last count that seemed to qualify, which means 55 were active duty uniform services. 8 were on federal property, working on federal property that wasn't right, Pat. And then 125 were on federal property that was right, Pat. So we had 188. So it's got to be at least 10% of your enrollment. We're about roughly at 100 and we're at 1,800 roughly. A little less depending upon what day you pick to do the attendance, right? So I think we would qualify. So we submitted the application and put in all the numbers and we're gonna wait and hear. Hopefully we will get federal impact aid for assistance. And then there's also building funds that are available, but we'll have to wait and see what we qualify for.
Thank you.
So.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. We got it done and we got the application submitted, so.
No, and thank you, I mean, you say everybody helped, and I am appreciative for all the people who got the paperwork, and including the parents and grandparents.
Oh, yes, thanks to the parents.
But this would not have happened without you pursuing it, and I know you had a lot on your plate, so greatly appreciate your efforts, Tina. When can we expect to hear back, and when funding applying?
Well, it's always, we had to submit by January 31st, and of course I waited till the last minute in case some people had last surveys coming in. And so I submitted it, I don't know, 3:45 on the 31st. And it's for fiscal year 23. So it'll be for next year. We're in 22 now. So I'm not expecting to hear anything for a month or two, but I certainly will update everyone as soon as I hear anything. And I've got the liaison's name and number and phone number now, she's in trouble, and email. So yeah, I'll be keeping on top of that.
Can you also put that in your report for the board meeting, so if we have a bigger audience, they're aware of that? Because I think it's a huge deal. It's a huge opportunity, and like I said, I think people need to be aware of what its potential is and what you're involved in.
Sure,
For sure. And
I'll
there's nothing
put
worse than
some on the
surveying and
summary.
never telling people what happened with the
Oh, no,
survey.
no,
anyway, so.
thank you to all those that did participate in the service and the survey, and we did have a, pretty good return on everything, so.
How many total surveys did we?
Oh, I didn't count those, I only counted those that were qualified right at the moment because we separate them, but we have a stack about to get. We did have a big stack, and like I said, Mrs. Belton and Mrs. Montgomery and Stagner, and they were also helpful in getting all that stuff back. I would have been here for a lot of hours trying to count all that. So I do appreciate all that.
And it
So.
was really hard with the weather. That
Oh,
didn't help us
yeah,
at
and then
all.
we had the calamity days and that made it even more difficult, but we qualify. So as we learn, As we learned, in order to do the survey online or using final forms, you have to do a demo with the federal government. So I'm gonna send everything out to the final forms people to get them to get that started now. And so when we do the survey again next year, we could probably do it a little earlier and maybe do it twice and do it online so that we don't have to worry about paper. Yeah,
Sure.
so we're gonna, now that we know what the requirements are, we're gonna try and get that done a lot sooner for next year.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's fabulous. Thank you. Anything further with item 9? Okay, wonderful. So items for discussion, moving on. Mr. Burks, are you ready?
Yeah, I can at least give you the information. You guys can go from there after I
Absolutely.
present it. So letter A is school resource officer through Miami County Sheriff's Department. I would like to thank the Sheriff's Department for the work that they've done in providing an SRO for the last handful of years. I'm not quite sure how long. I mean, I've had one every year I've been here, maybe 4 or 5. This is year 3 for me. We've had one every year I've been here, and I'm sure it was 4. So, one time we had, yeah, so I think it provides an extremely valuable presence in the building. I think it emphasizes what we believe in as a district, which is safety of students and staff. I think it has a tremendous amount of benefit as far as connecting our kids and our staff with law enforcement and creating that positive relationship. Officer Liz does a great job of being around the buildings and visible and getting to know the kids. Really engaged with the elementary, middle school, and high school students and staff. I will tell you though that the contract recently was presented to me by the Sheriff's Department. And as you can see from the contract that was provided in the executive, it's a pretty substantial increase for next year, almost 20+%, which is a significant increase. I will also say that that increase is applied to all of the county schools that utilize this service equally. So it wasn't just a significant hit to Bethel, it was all districts. And then that was for the first year, and then years 2 and 3 are, I would say, pretty typical increases, 3%, but the first year is significant. So I guess it's that cost benefit ratio. You take a look at it. What cost benefit risk ratio? What does the district want to do and the board want to do moving forward? Are there other options that you want to try to explore? Do you just want to foot the bill for it and move forward with it? I have reached out to the Miami Valley Career Technical Center. They actually look at either retired law enforcement who have OPADA training, or they look at off-duty officers that serve in that capacity, et cetera. There are other things that you could look at, but you guys are going to have to make a decision. It doesn't need to be today, obviously, but start thinking about it a little bit and probably having some discussion on which direction you want to go.
This is a 3-year contract.
It has been presented as a 3-year contract, correct? And all districts have been presented with the same contract.
Sure. And then what's the timeline that they're asking us to get back to?
I think the contract expires early summer, so sometime this spring. You wanted to at least get in our hands early because of the sticker shock for the first year raise, probably.
Justin, could you talk to your contact with the Sheriff's Department? With us opening a new building in another 1.5 years, I don't know that we know right now what our needs are going to be for an SRO. So I'm wondering if we could get a 1-year contract for this year with the option to renew for 2.
Okay. I can do that, I guess, just for clarification's sake. What if he says yes, but it's still going to be that first year increase? I still think that's probably going to be in play. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean,
think so.
No doubt.
I
All
mean,
right, I just want you to be aware of that.
you can ask to reduce it, but I imagine the answer is going to be no.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line is law enforcement and fire staff across the board have had increases. They've gotten pay increases. This is not unusual. I would be eager to know if they had any CARES or ESSER money that they were able to apply to it, because that's what they're showing us, or if those are going away and that's why we're ending up absorbing it. But I would be interested to know that, because I know at least in the townships, they use some of that money.
They indicated with the cost increases they've received with insurance and then providing training for officers in the school setting, they've been a little lax in increasing their contracts with state as well.
I would still like to know if any of the SRO salary specifically was covered by any of the federal grant dollars.
Yeah, we'll do.
I would be very interested to know that, because I mean, it's a big deal to have an over 20% increase from one year to the next. And then, like I said, I would just like to see the receptiveness to that, because I would hate to approve something that's not going to suit our needs in a year. And that gives us a little more time if we want to explore other options, like a retired Leo. I think to do that now would be very disruptive. So I just think it gives us some time to think through that. And decide what our best strategy is when we get a little closer to having the building open. But that's my thoughts, maybe you guys think something else.
Not used to thinking in terms of more than one building.
Right.
Right.
Not used to that at all.
It's a big consideration though. We don't know, you know, we're not open until 2023, so we can't,
Yeah.
you know, lock that down.
Well, I'll most certainly give him a call tomorrow morning. Are there any other questions that the members have that they would like me to ask Captain McLynch? I have a conversation with.
I emailed you mine earlier, they're very much aligned with.
Yeah,
What this.
Yeah, I received
it. Indicated, so. Nothing really new in my questions there.
Oh, and then there is one other issue. When you talk to the deputy, one of the things that's come to my attention, probably many of our attention, is the issue with vaping in bathrooms. We would also like to see, since Officer McGuire is here to uphold the law, if she can be kind of instrumental in developing a plan for reducing / eliminating some of that.
yeah, good luck. That's everywhere. That's kind of
I
why.
realize it's everywhere, but you know, this is a big problem in not just our district, but other districts, and I would be eager to see their input. That's certainly part of
Yeah.
what I would think a role of a SRO should be in a school.
Yeah, I can certainly have conversations with her, and I would also tell you that, you know,
Good luck.
we provided information in the past, and I have recently as well. If the school board is willing to institute. Yeah, good luck. That's everywhere. That's kind of
I
why.
realize it's everywhere, but you know, this is a big problem in not just our district, but other districts. There you go.
Apologies.
You know, if the district is willing to implement a student drug testing policy for extracurricular, co-curricular, student drivers, et cetera, that would also help deter that as well. I know it's been discussed probably 10 years ago, wasn't really fond of at the time, but I think the district has changed, and if you would look at our neighboring districts, they all have. So we'll have Great Lakes Biomedical on campus at our March work session to provide a presentation to the board, potential questions as well, and then you guys can go from there. So I'll talk with the SRO, but you know, things like that would help as well. So.
Yeah, I don't think there's any one right answer, but I definitely think some of her time when she's with us needs devoted to somehow addressing that. And it's not her alone, but I think she may have more of the time to be able to address that, and hopefully has the resources to address that, right?
Yeah, I would, you know, the hardest part for her is going to be when it happens. It usually happens in the bathrooms, and she's probably not going to go in the room. It's not going to go in the main restroom. So,
But by the flip side, we have male principals, and
Yeah.
maybe there's a strategy we can use there with her being female that we can provide better coverage.
Okay.
I don't know. But I think we at least need to have a conversation.
Okay. All right. Anything else in regards to letter A, question wise, that I need to ask Captain McGlinch? Letter B, Ohio Safety Grant, School Safety Grant. State of Ohio has provided $11 million in funding for all schools in the state of Ohio. Based on the number of schools that apply, it essentially said that each district is eligible for a grant of either $2,500 or $5.50 per student, whichever number is higher. So based on a rough estimate of 1,800 kids times $5.50. With this grant, Bethel Local Schools will be eligible for a grant of $9,900. We've submitted application to that for that grant. We've utilized this grant dollars every single year, at least that I've been here. We're looking at providing one of the Ohio Revised Code requirements is that each school district has a threat assessment team, which would be made up of law enforcement like your SRO, outside agencies that come in with military/government training. The pool group is the group that we're looking at out of Arcanum. They are actually the only agency in the state of Ohio that's certified by the Ohio Department of Education to provide this training, which is great because they're our next door neighbor. We used them a couple of years ago to come here and provide run, hide, fight training to our staff. Whole group's going to come back, provide our threat assessment training. Once we receive the grant for this, you also need to have a trained team for each of the buildings. So each training team is roughly $5,000. So we'll be able to train essentially a middle school, high school team, and also have an elementary trained team, utilize all of those grant dollars. So we have one in place when our elementary building opens next year. And I'm curious to learn more about it because that's basically all I know about the threat assessment team. So it's basically trying to identify at-risk kids before or adults before something drastic happens in a school setting and putting those interventions in place to help them before something boils over where you hear about it from time to time in the newspaper. So-and-so exhibited this warning sign and this warning sign and this warning sign and nothing was done about it. And all of a sudden a school event happened. So that's the idea. So
Right.
we're hoping that the $10.99 we'll have to pay $100 out of the general fund to get our two teams trained for this grant. So. And then letter C was presented by Mrs. Franz, so she can speak about that.
Okay.
Strong.
Yeah, I'm getting my stuff together here. So the document you sent out earlier, is that for public discussion here tonight?
The FAQ?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, it will be, but you would want to discuss policy 7510?
Well, I guess I need to back up because I had requested to, I didn't see a 7510, first of all, I saw it was 7501.
There is no 7501.
Okay, so I had requested to discuss a private facilities use policy / bathroom policy this evening. And an email went out that the criteria for the topic that was requested to be discussed would be policies that were sent out for us to read. I think you'd sent us policies to read. I did go over those policies, but what I didn't want to speak about sex discrimination. I think that's kind of what you had said you thought it was. And what I'd like to talk about is bathroom policy.
Okay.
And so my thoughts on that is that the practice or the practical policy of this school district regarding restrooms, locker rooms, showers has been that the boys use the boys' restrooms, girls use the girls' restrooms for decades. And I'm just going to suggest that if we want to change that policy after decades, whether written or not, we do need a written policy to reflect any changes in order to protect the district. And I do think that the district needs to be on record with a specific policy because we need to provide protection for our school board members, school officials through a policy that's going to state what we plan to do. And I do believe this is too public of an issue. The parents and community are going to get upset. We're already seeing some of that. And we are leaving everybody exposed legally. And I think we need to close those gaps. And we can't really, especially for our superintendent and our principals, are particularly at risk without a policy in place. The board, I think, needs to discuss this issue in a public meeting and have a vote on it, and everyone can vote their conscience. I do believe there's a huge deficiency in the way that this has been handled so far. And we need a public meeting with public notice, and we need to come up with a policy either way. And there is going to be controversy if we don't handle this appropriately. We do need to protect ourselves. We can work with an expert to draft a policy that will include accommodations for trans identifying students. And any student at all that is not comfortable with can use a private facility or private toilet, not just students identifying as trans. So that's what I wanted to suggest, that we do come up with a policy for the district.
Other number? So, I mean, I would say in response to that, we don't have a policy about restrooms specifically. We have an anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policy. There's no need for a vote on a policy of that nature because we have those policies already existing. And those policies are telling us what we need to do according to the advice of many, multiple attorneys, 2 different firms have told us that that's what we need to do. Students are students. The students, we have an anti-discrimination, like I said, policy that says, we don't discriminate based on sex, including gender identity. It says it specifically in our policy. Therefore, they're using the restroom to identify with because we don't discriminate. That's our policy. So there's no vote on that because that policy already exists. We sent the FAQ, you refer to that, or folks to refer to, which just delineates a little bit more detail about how administration, how staff is going to, approach the situation, a little bit more about court cases behind it, a little more to answer questions from families and parents, which should hopefully clarify, I guess, why things are the way they are. What else I can say about that? Mr. Burks, anything you add?
No, I mean, the FAQ is essentially just a updated document that's been used by other neighboring districts that have experienced this probably over the last 5 to 10 years. They were gracious enough to share the issue that they've dealt with and how they've tried to present some information out. Attorneys have updated it based on laws that have changed, and it just provides some day-to-day operation as far as how administrators have conversations, not only with students, but also families before any use of restrooms occurs. It's not, I don't want people to think that the kids just show up and use whatever restroom they feel like on that day. There has to be a conversation that takes place between their families, parents, or legal guardians and that child with the building administrator. And they have to show a consistency in history and pattern of identifying with that gender, not necessarily, I just feel this way today. I'm trying to say it, and I don't know, maybe I'm not explaining myself well enough. We're just trying to make sure that folks understand that it's not just a free-for-all as far as who uses restrooms where, and there are conversations that need to happen. If those conversations don't happen and students get caught doing that, it will be handled discipline-wise in buildings.
I would like to just add, with all due respect, my superintendent first, that the policies that you sent really don't have anything to do with this issue specifically. Again, it doesn't reasonably cover privacy facilities. And this FAQ, this is a policy in and of itself. So when parents and community members are asking, do we have a transgender bathroom policy and sports policy? This would be it. This is a policy. This was never voted on right here by the board. So again, I think the proper way to handle this, because it is such a public issue and it does affect all of the community members, we need to have a community discussion and we need to take a vote on whether we are going to put forth a bathroom policy, because this is a policy, what you sent us. And this was never voted on by the board, highlighting all of the conditions for, oh, you can't just walk into a bathroom, you have to be seen by a counselor, this, that. This is a policy that needs to be voted on. So I would suggest that if this is what we're going to put out to parents, it needs to go through the board. And I think it's fair that parents understand that if this is what we're using, this is a policy. So we do have a policy after all for
I guess
transgender bathroom.
the only thing I would say respectfully is that we'll agree to disagree. I don't believe it's a policy. I believe it's a procedure. It's no different than how we would handle a kid that brings something to school inappropriate. We follow a procedure of investigating the kid, doing interviews. That's not necessarily a policy.
So
Those are
procedure-
procedurally how we handle a student, having conversations with them. If a student calls another student an inappropriate name in class, we don't have a policy for that. We have a classroom management plan. It's a procedure that staff member follows, or the principal follows. Not every day-to-day operation or strategy that's utilized in the school district is based on policy. That's the only thing I would say. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying my interpretation of that is procedure on how we handle things, not necessarily policy. There's no policy number that's indicated in here. This is how we handle a situation with a child who says, I want to use the boys' restroom. Here's how we handle it step by step.
Which is a policy or procedures.
But procedures are not board
but a
approved,
procedure-
policies are board approved.
But a procedure is often guided by policy.
Okay, this
So-
is not based on any policy that we have in place.
Okay, and I'm just making the point that this would be considered a policy, in my opinion, and something that definitely the board would need to.
That's why I said we can agree to disagree. I think it's a procedure.
I would also like to ask, because I have never seen the legal opinions from any of the attorneys you've referenced. I would like to see the white paper with the attorney's name, with the opinion of those attorneys you've spoken to on this issue.
Sure, I can get that to you guys soon.
The comments from members? So are you making a motion? Is there any?
Oh, I would like to make a motion to put this on for a vote at the next meeting, that we do enact a bathroom policy for the district.
We can ask our attorney if that policy that will exist. I mean, we've already.
And if
asked
this
him
is
many
going to
times,
be the
so-
policy, I know Superintendent Perks disagrees. And I understand that, but if this is going to be the policy, this needs to be voted on. Otherwise, I mean, why are we here? Because it's almost like it's de facto. Trying to make a policy without going through the board. And I'm not delineating between this procedure / policy. So I'll just leave with that. And maybe we can have more discussion on that, but I'm not seeing it, so.
Understood.
Well, if you want to vote on it, that's certainly the board's prerogative. You guys obviously make policies for the district. And then under bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll delete the last line that says a new policy is not necessary or appropriate, because it's not a policy. So
Correct. And every discussion that I personally have had with our attorney, and I'm pretty sure you've had similar conversations, you know, he said, the only policy you have are your anti-discrimination and your anti-harassment policies. Those are the board policies. You are following them. These are your guidelines you're putting in place that follow those policies. There is no other policy to be created. That's what he said every single time. So that's all I know.
And if there were, Neola would have sent us those policies, and they are not happy even with minor changes,
For sure.
creating new policies that they have not.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, quite frankly, Jessica, are you familiar with any public school district that has a bathroom policy?
Yeah, so you did send some information today, I think this afternoon. I would like the names of those districts, because I would like to be able to question those districts and see how those are working out for them.
I thought I sent that to the board already. Our communications director reached out. to-
Well, with some of them, yeah, I
Detroit
have
City
more
Schools.
questions.
But are you familiar with actual board policy addressing that in any other district?
I would have to talk to, I mean, I'd have to ask those questions, because I know that, you know, the decision was made based on speaking with an attorney or several attorneys. I'm not sure, because I have never seen the attorney's opinion on this, and I would very much like to see that. I know I myself have spoken to an attorney on the issue. He has a very different opinion of a legal interpretation of what is going on, because no law has been passed. This has not made it to the Supreme Court. There's no state law, there's no federal law that says you have to make this decision to allow a trans identifying student to use the bathroom. So it is still not, it's not well vetted law at all. Still being
There
worked
is
on in
no
the process.
precedent, correct?
Yes, but are we making these decisions for our district based on legal precedent or law? State or federal law? That would be the question we'd have to answer.
When
And
we
I
are
think that
sworn
would
in,
be
we are
appropriate for the community to weigh in on that. Yes, the law, not legal precedent. It's not well settled law. It has never made it to the Ohio Supreme Court. And the Title VII that's been stated by our attorney, that's employment law. That has really nothing to do with the situation we're facing here. Again, I think we need to fully legally vet this, seek the counsel of other attorneys on this issue. And I want to see, you know, all the legal opinions that we're getting, please. That would be very helpful for me to see.
I'll definitely get that to you guys. And just to clarify, Title VII was indicated for employment. Title IX was indicated for students.
Correct.
So let's make sure we add that to the record.
So, nice segue, I guess, into the FAQ document. Any other questions related to the FAQ document that's been shared with board members? It will be released to the public.
Yeah.
First correct in the next day or
As long
so.
as you guys give me the thumbs up for it.
Well, I need to know what that means. I guess if that means just we're giving permission for it to be released to the public or that we are agreeing to what it's saying. And I guess I was confused by the earlier email. For the soup. What exactly were you asking for in 24 hours for us to do?
Well, I mean, I guess this was presented to me by members of the school board who had asked, can we get more information out? So part of what our communications director did was reach out to Troy City Schools, Oakwood City Schools, Beaver Creek City Schools, Bradford local schools, all the schools in the area that have dealt with this previously, taken all of their information and kind of put it into an FAQ, which they've also released over the last 5 to 10 years to their community members, indicating how they were procedurally going to deal with the situation as it came up in the district. We don't have to necessarily do this at all. I'm just trying to be transparent with people as they have questions on how you're going to manage the situation, how you're going to have conversations with students and families. And there's been multiple parents that have called and said, so what, my child can be the female restroom today and the boys restroom tomorrow? Well, I want to make sure that we're very clear that that's not going to be allowed. That's basically what I was trying to do, was provide information on a request that was given to me to get more information out to the community. So if you guys don't like it or don't want to use it, that's fine. I'm just, I guess, doing what I was asked to do.
It just walks through, you know, it's not in public view, so it walks through what are the rules with regard to restroom use. How does the district decide what accommodations are appropriate for transgender students? You know, have we had policies? Have we passed new policies about this? Does that mean a student can decide one day to use the female restroom and the next to use the male? How can I be sure of my child's safety and privacy? Why does the district provide these accommodations? What action is the board taking on this issue? Is this a new issue for school districts? Is this a new issue for Bethel? What about locker rooms? How does dress code apply? Can transgender students participate in extracurricular activities and athletics? Who are the transgender students at Bethel? Which I'll just spoiler alert that it's FERPA. Rights and to privacy have to be respected. So we cannot reveal information about the status of a student. And then how can students safely express their views? So that is the summary of the high points of the questions. That's what has been shared with the board of how we've answered those questions, or how our attorney specifically.
Yeah, I would say it's very similar to the reopening plan that we put out with COVID. A lot of that guidance came from the health department. A lot of this guidance has come from districts and a couple of legal firms that we have represent us. And I'll get you guys that information that have dealt with this previously, and information that they put out. People are probably still going to be accepting or welcoming in some cases of it. I understand that people have their own personal feelings and they're ability to share those feelings, but it's just trying to get information out to people that may have questions. So I'm not fielding the same cut and pasted email over and over and over, which is what I typically get. The same one, just different name. So,
This is just the business of the district.
yeah,
This isn't something that the board is putting in place. This is something that is just the business of the district. I mean, it's not routine, but it's routine, right?
and we don't have to release it. If you think it's a bad idea and people don't want to know how it's being implemented, then we don't have to do it.
I think given people have asked for transparency on this, Danny and Natalie, what are your opinions?
I don't see a problem. I think it'd be fine to release it.
Excuse me, I and agree that I think it, for transparency, it would be good to release that. And I also wanted, I don't know if Mr. Firk said that today, but this is similar to what the Troy City Schools did. And it was posted in the newspaper, so I think that was the background format for this. I apologize if I'm repeating that.
No, you're not. And it's not, I don't want to pretend that I came up with this or it wasn't. I mean, everything's begged for, borrowed, or stolen. So this was already created by Troy and we just had it updated with whatever new information has come out. I think when Troy dealt with this was 2015. How do I know that? That was my first year as a superintendent and my brother-in-law's first year as a principal there. And he had to deal with the situation in the 6th grade building. So I would talk to him or call him once a week and say, hey, I saw the article on WLIO, how's it going? So it's been 7 years. Things have changed statute-wise. So I did have Mr. Pogorski and Bronson McCord from Ennis Britton, the 2 firms that we have hired, look at this, and they both agreed that it's on par with what they've provided to other districts that they've represented. And I'll get you guys the white paper and all that stuff that you asked for.
So just for clarification, so this was put together by Troy School District,
Mhm.
by attorneys, or I heard some information about our board members helping to put this together.
No, they requested that I put some information together in
Okay,
an
so this is
FAQ.
what,
We reached out and this is what one of the districts shared with me.
were attorneys involved?
I'm sure they
with
were.
this?
I don't know. I'm guessing Troy City Schools probably would refer to their attorneys like I did with this. Because I had them essentially updated.
Okay.
Yeah. It came right from their assistant superintendent, Mr. Michael Moore.
But regardless, you've cleared this and both of our attorneys that we approved at our organization.
Yeah, I would never give you guys this kind of information without having them take a look at it and proofreading it and editing it.
So if there were errors, they would have suggested changes.
Correct. And they did make changes.
Excellent.
Like I said, the Troy document was 7 years old.
Sure. Thank you.
I don't understand the reference heard several times that this is not a law. It's not a legislatively passed law.
Right, not in the state.
However, so many legal questions are resolved in the courts, resolved one way or another 50 years ago with Roe versus Wade. Obviously, there it was, and we've had case, it goes back and forth and that kind of thing. But when the Supreme Court or in this case, the 6th Circuit makes these judgments, then those are the balance, those are the desires of those courts that we follow that. Whether or not, if it's changed later, great. And again, I told you, you know how I stand on it, but we are bound to follow the law.
The law, yes. So I just like to add, I appreciate where you're coming from, and no disrespect to you, but I would like to just add that for clarification for those who may not know, Title IX is about sex and race discrimination, not gender or identity. And do we really want to take the chance that this doesn't matter to our parents, to the community, to the students? And again, I'll say, I think we need a policy to be voted on in a proper manner. And it's really hard for me to believe that we wouldn't want a policy for that to protect, again, our superintendent, our administrators, our school officials, the board with this. Title IX is not Title VII. I think I already mentioned Title VII has to do with employment law. The reason I'm citing these is because this was the reasoning used behind from the attorney that we should move forward. Well, I say we, I didn't have any part in this decision to make this decision. There is no force of law, I'd like to add. There's regulations don't have force of law. So we could call these federal suggestions, but Congress has not passed a law. If Ohio legislators want to pass a law, they can do it, but they haven't. And so again, I would be happy to have the attorney I've spoken to talk to our attorneys and see what they can come up with, if that's something that you guys want to do. I think context in which something is said is just as important as what is said. So I think that's why it's important that we all as a board get to view the letters from the attorneys who have given their opinions on this. And this is a way to take care of all, and I want to emphasize all of our students. I represent, the people of my district, and this is what they have asked me to address. This is what is weighing on them. This is what is important. That's why I'm bringing this up. And again, we're changing the practice of how we use the bathrooms. The policy is the practice of how it's been done for decades. And the clear practice has been changed without the benefit of a public discussion, which is how you change policy. So I'll just leave that. That's where I stand on that.
Excuse me, just can I ask the FAQ document, other than the fact that it may, you believe it might be more policy and procedure, did you find anything else in there that in and of itself that you would not agree with?
I think it's one that's in here, but
And therefore maybe not want it to be.
I can't find
released
it
for
right
the
now. I know
public.
I've read this through a couple of times, but there is a section in here again where we talk about caring for all the students, respecting the privacy and dignity of each and every students. And I don't believe we are accomplishing that without giving the community a benefit of weighing in on this and letting everyone speak and provide input into this very controversial issue. And then, taking a vote, and what it is, with the policy that we enact, if we decide to enact a bathroom policy and the board takes a vote, that's what we want to do, then that's what we do. If we don't, but I'm going to say that I think it's appropriate that we do have a policy in place for this. So.
Do you feel that if we were to put the FAQ document out for general information, it would preclude doing any other work?
I would suggest putting the brakes on this for now, because I would like to have my attorney take a look at it. You said our attorneys have already taken a look at that. Is that correct? Okay. And maybe have a discussion with those attorneys as well. I have some questions for them. I'd like to, I just got this afternoon. It was like, let me know in 24 hours, here it is. I need more than 24 hours to digest all of this. There's 3 pages here. And there are some sections that I wasn't comfortable with. And I would like to have more time.
Worth noting that it does indicate in the FAQ, and it is the district's stance, Mr. Perks has said, that any student who has a need for increased privacy, a desire for increased privacy, regardless of their underlying reason, they may request access to a private restroom. Correct?
And locker room.
In locker room.
Mhm.
So that is worth noting. Folks should be aware of that. Anyone else have an issue with this being released?
It also indicates in the document that because of the sensitivity of undress in locker rooms, that separate locker rooms must be provided to all students who request. So there will be no equal access to restrooms, or to locker rooms.
Well,
I can, yeah, like I said, I was just providing what I was asked to provide, so you guys give me direction on what you want me to do next.
And I know when it comes to other outside attorneys and things like that, I mean, the board has chosen to appoint attorneys for the district. We have opinions from those attorneys. I mean, people are, I'm sure, free to, solicit their own opinions from their own attorneys all they wish, but, we are fairly well bound to accept the opinions of the attorneys we have appointed. And we have those opinions very clearly what those are. So I don't know what else to say about that particular point.
And we've used John Dworzewski for years. He has 30 or 40 years expertise, and I'm sure Ennis and Britton also very reputable. So I feel very comfortable with their guidance. I'm comfortable releasing this.
So, well, that's your answer.
Okay.
there's not necessarily a vote on that.
No, I mean, I don't know that there's a vote item really necessarily. This is a district paper.
It's just trying to get information out to families, so I can answer some of the questions that I've received via phone call and email the last week or two.
Right.
So obviously not going to hit every question. People can continue to feel free to call and email me, and I will address questions as I try to do in a timely manner as quickly as I can. So,
Any documents ever going to answer this question?
no,
I don't
but
think
it
that's
seems to be the locker room issue seems to come up frequently. And obviously, what happens if kids want to flip flop, and try to address that. Those are the two main ones that I've received.
I really just want to give you the tools to help you do your job. That's really the only thing I would like to help you with if I can. So
Yeah, it's just trying to be upfront with people and let them know what's going on.
get some information out. Because I mean, I do feel like, we haven't put enough information out.
No,
And whatever we can do to help remedy that. Anything further? From section 10 in general, or any of those items? Okay. Moving on, is there a need for executive session from anyone? None? Wow, rock on. Okay. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? I'll move. Lori moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll say it.
Thank you, Mr. Elam, for the second. Okay. Ms. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mrs. Springs?
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 7:17 PM. 5-0 vote. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance.
I won't, I always forget how to read this. Okay, so. Stop.